manned missions to the moon, where they did everything from playing golf to speeding around in a dune buggy to receiving a live phone call from President Nixon. In reality, when examined in depth with a critical eye, however, these staged events are found to be nothing but a monumental hoax perpetrated on a gullible and unsuspecting public. 1. To begin with, the moon itself is simply a luminary, a non-physical light in the sky, and not a spherical terra firma planetoid as maintained by NASA and modern astronomy. On clear days, you can see for yourself, during a waxing or waning cycle, the blue sky through the moon. On clear nights, during a waxing or waning cycle, it is possible to see stars directly through the surface of the moon. And during each new moon, the moon completely disappears from view and remains invisible for that one day per month. Even members of the Royal Astronomical Society have time and again recorded their confusion at being able to see stars directly through the moon. For example, Sir James South of the Royal Observatory in Kensington wrote that, quote, "On my first looking into the telescope, a star of about the 7th magnitude was some minutes of a degree distant from the moon's dark limb. I saw that its occultation by the moon was inevitable, but the star, instead of disappearing the moment the moon's edge came in contact with it, apparently glided on the moon's dark face, as if it had been seen through a transparent moon, or as if a star were between me and the moon. I have seen a similar apparent projection several times. The cause of this phenomenon is involved in impenetrable mystery." A star occulting a crescent moon has long been a popular symbol of Islam, was the symbol of the Ottoman Empire, is found on the flags of Algeria, Azerbaijan, Libya, Malaysia, Mauritania, Pakistan, Singapore, Tunisia, Turkey, and in the coat of arms of countries from Croatia to Germany, Ireland, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Sweden, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. Nowadays, however, thanks to decades of NASA propaganda, people believe against the evidence of their own senses that the moon is a physical terra firma planetoid capable of walking on. 2. Basic physics proves that not only has man never flown to the moon, but that the entire concept of a vacuum of space is impossible. NASA and modern astronomy claim that the Earth's atmosphere spins perfectly along with the Earth up to an indeterminate height where it allegedly meets the vacuum of space. Anyone who has punctured an aerosol canister knows, however, that a positive pressure system adjacent to a negative pressure system must have a solid barrier separating them, or else they will equilibrate. Furthermore, at ground level, this spinning atmosphere supposedly travels around 1,000 miles per hour and increases in speed with altitude, so that by 250 miles high, where they claim the International Space Station orbits, the atmosphere and everything in it are allegedly traveling a ridiculous 17,500 miles per hour, the speed of a bullet. This means the astronauts in their rockets were traveling faster than a speeding bullet when finally they popped out of the Earth's spinning, pressurized atmosphere and into the non-spinning, non-pressurized, non-atmosphere of the vacuum of space. Even if they could somehow survive such a transition, once in the supposed vacuum of space, it would be impossible to continue steering, because all propulsion systems require the air in the atmosphere to push against. In a vacuum, there is no such counterforce, so all propulsion, rather than sending the rocket forward, would instead send it spinning wildly and randomly out of control. In recent years, NASA has attempted damage control regarding this issue, by now claiming that the moon is actually still within the Earth's atmosphere. But this doesn't change the fact that they stood by this impossible claim for decades. 3. The amount of radiation claimed to exist in space, especially through the so-called Van Allen belt, was far too strong for the astronauts' flimsy suits. Starting at an altitude of 1,000 miles up to approximately 15,000 miles, NASA claims there exists a deadly band of radiation that would kill or seriously injure anyone passing through in a matter of minutes. One Russian study stated that the amount of radiation present on the moon would require astronauts to be clothed in 4 feet of lead in order to avoid instant death. John Malden, a NASA physicist, said they would need at least 2 meters of thick shielding around them at all times, yet we see them on film bouncing around the moon in their 2-inch thin suits. Even James Van Allen himself continued to state until his death in 2006 that there was no way humans could survive the 90-minute journey through and another 90-minute journey back through the radiation belt without being completely encased in thick lead shielding. 4. Temperatures on the moon supposedly range from 279 degrees below zero during the nighttime, which is far colder than even Antarctica's coldest winter, and up to 243 degrees above zero at lunar midday, which is hotter than boiling water. NASA claims their special suits were fitted with both heating and cooling systems, but nothing which could come close to withstanding these incredible temperatures. The suits were also supposedly pressurized to keep the vacuum non-pressure of space from bursting their blood vessels, but they clearly have deep creases and wrinkles all over. Astronauts in true pressurized suits would look like the Michelin Man, bubbling out and very inflexible. Also, it is impossible for the Kodak film in their cameras to have survived these extreme temperatures without melting or freezing. 5. In images from Apollo 11, Buzz Aldrin can be seen wearing different color gloves and different length boots in pictures that were supposedly taken within minutes of each other. For example, in photo AS11-40-5873, Aldrin is wearing high boots and dark gray gloves. But just 2 pictures later, in AS11-40-5875, he has changed into smaller boots and white gloves. If Buzz was really in the vacuum of space in a pressurized spacesuit, he certainly would not have had time or reason to depressurize and repressurize his suit just to make these fashion adjustments. 6. None of the Apollo missions brought any extra studio lighting with them on the lunar lander, so the sun should be the only light source on the moon, and in all pictures taken there. In this case, the light should only come from one direction, and all shadows should be cast in the opposite direction. However, in dozens of official NASA photos, there are shadows being cast in up to 3 directions simultaneously, often at up to 90-degree angles, which can only be the result of multiple light sources not present on the moon. For example, in Apollo 14 photo AS1468-9486, the shadow of the lunar lander in the background is being cast at a drastically different angle from the rocks in the foreground. 7. Many pictures purportedly showing the sun, as viewed from the moon, are clearly just studio spotlights, and not the sun. Apollo 12 photo AS1246-6765, for example, after computer enhancements, reveals a large light bulb in the center of the sun. After being thoroughly dissected by many researchers, NASA actually removed the high-resolution version of this image from their Apollo gallery. Apollo 11 photo AS11-40-5935 also shows a conical spotlight effect extending from a light just out of frame that is clearly not the sun. 8. Several Apollo images show a defined separation line where the ground meets with what can only be a studio backdrop. If they were actually filming on the moon, the ground would seamlessly meet the background, leaving no such dividing line. Furthermore, when analyzed side by side, dozens of images reveal that NASA reused the same backdrops time and again on what are alleged to be completely different areas of the moon. The contours of hills, mountains, and valleys align perfectly when superimposed upon one another. For example, Apollo 15 image AS1582-11057 shows the lunar lander set against a very unique and distinct mountain. Between 1969 to 19